been wanting to film this video for a while. Just haven't uploaded it yet because I feel like it's a bit of a sensitive topic because it talks about religion and spirituality. A little bit of a background about myself is I grew up in Baptist churches and kind of following that Baptist belief very strongly. My family wasn't religious, but I was someone who was always drawn to a very spiritual life. So for me, it was like, oh, well, duh, go to church. So ever since I was very, very young, I was always going to church and reading the Bible, trying to live the typical Christian lifestyle. I'm not gonna say I was a perfect Christian. I was very far from that. I mean, we all make mistakes and we all have flaws. That was somebody who, like, okay, yes, I am a Christian and I believe this. But for me, there was always doubt in the back of my mind. I've never doubted that God exists or that there's a higher power. I've always known that. I've always been a very, very strong believing person in the fact that there is a higher power and guardian angels and a spiritual world. I have never doubted that in any place in my mind. But I doubted the things that church was teaching me. There's a lot of questions that I had. When I asked, I got shunned or shut down or just told, you are wrong for questioning these things. You are wrong for asking. You are wrong for asking these things. I mean, and they were questions that were good questions to me. Like, for example, one thing, I know this one isn't very deep, but this is a good example. How Jesus is always portrayed as being a white man, but he was Middle Eastern. One of the simple questions that I asked. And some of the more complex question was, in the Bible it talks about Jesus talking to God and he's by himself, but somebody else is there witnessing it and writing those things down. Another thing is that the Bible was written in Hebrew, I believe was the original language. A very, very old language that obviously is so old it existed 2,000 years ago. And one of my questions is, if it's been translated so many times, wouldn't the meaning of things or wouldn't the way things are said have changed? If you try to translate something from English to Spanish, it's going to change a little bit. Just like in, I believe, French, it's not I miss you, you are missing from me. But obviously it's said in French. But if you translate what is said in French to English, it says you are missing from me instead of I miss you. So it changes a little bit. And that's something that I've always questioned is, how can we be 100% sure that this is exactly what God meant and somebody didn't translate it in a way that makes it sound different or rewrite it in a way that they think that it meant? Those questions just were not acceptable to ask, and it always confused me because if I want to get to know God more and I want to understand these things, isn't that a good thing? I'm not questioning his authority. I'm questioning what do these things mean so that I can understand them. So how come I am not allowed to ask questions? As I got older, especially getting to the end of high school and graduation, I really started to question, is this right for me? Is this where I need to be? I definitely don't want to live a life that has no spirituality involved at all because it's always something that is so important to me. But I started to question, is God really in church? Do I have to go to church to find him? And I just noticed that when I went to church, it just felt empty. I don't know how to explain it. It's like that power, that spiritual being was not in church. I know they say the people are the church, but something about it just felt like a facade. It just didn't feel real. Like something was off, but I still wanted to find God. I still wanted to have a very spiritual life. So in 2017, I quit going to church. Just cold turkey. I just quit. I never went back. I put my Bible away and I quit reading it and I started meditating. I figured the best place to look for the answers that I'm seeking is within me. If I can meditate and quiet my mind, I think that's a really good place to start. And that started a completely different turn in my life. A very good one at that. But it started a completely different phase in my life when I started meditating. It started out with 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, a little bit here and there. But then I started getting more into it. And this meditation really started to change my life because not only was it changing my mind, it was changing my diet, it was changing my behavior, it was changing the way that I looked at life and the way that I went about it. I mean, even my diet started to change when I got into this because I realized I'm eating processed foods and meat and dairy and a lot of heavy things. It is harder for me to connect when I meditate. So I went completely raw vegan and went through a detox month, and it was a lot easier for me to connect. When I did that, I came to a lot of realizations that I didn't even know that I needed it was so much easier for me to learn how to forgive people. Very, very dark, not so kind people at that. People who had done very wrong things to me, I was able to forgive them, not from a place of, oh, you know, like what you did was okay and I hope all the best for you. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like a, what you did was okay, I'm forgiving what you did. It was more of a, okay, I understand that there are people in the world with very, very dark, damaged minds. It's more understanding why people do what they do, not justifying, but understanding what causes people to become those kind of people, to do those kind of things. Then it was easier to just stop holding a grudge, because I realized that forgiveness was actually not about them at all. It was all about me. And it was for me. It was not for them at all. So once I realized that, it was like a weight being lifted off of my shoulder. And these were things that I never got to do in church. Never things that I realized while I was in church. And church is very big on forgiving people, but I just never came to those realizations. I always was like, well, how? Somebody does something terrible, why should I, you know, be nice to them and forgive them? But when I started meditating, I really understood it. Forgiveness isn't about giving anything, it's all about what you get from it. Because you get freedom from it, you're able to breathe again, and you're able to just let that trauma go, because you realize that is not yours anymore, and what they did to you is not personal. And for me, that was earth-shattering for my healing. It turned my world completely around in a good way. I also felt like when I did pray and when I did talk to whatever you want to label, the higher power, the universe, God. I mean, I really think those words are just different labels for the same thing. But when I did start to pray, I felt more connected. Like I was actually praying. Like that connection was actually there. And it was just an insane amount of peace. So what I'm saying is my spiritual journey had an insane amount of positives that completely changed my life and changed who I am from the person from the inside out. About a year into it or so, I would say closer this summer, I started doubting myself and my journey again, because I had a lot of people reaching out to me, a lot of people from church that I used to go to church with, and a lot of Christian blogs and things like that reaching out to me, trying to warn me about the path that I'm on, basically telling me that what I'm doing is evil and attracting evil, and just trying to scare me and telling me that if I don't go back to church, I'm gonna go to hell. I have to stop meditating or I'm gonna go to hell. At first I was like, well, I'm doing this to get to know God better. I'm doing this to be able to forgive people and be a more peaceful person. So how is that wrong? How does that condemn me to hell because of that? It was very confusing. But then I had a lot of people telling me things and sending me articles and YouTube channels talking about how the law of attraction is witchcraft, which yes, it can be used for bad intentions, but the law of attraction itself is like water. You need water to live. You have to drink water, and it's amazing for your body, but it can also drown you. So water isn't good or bad, it's water, and it can be used in different ways depending on a specific person. Same thing. But it scared me because I'm like, oh, I haven't been going to church, I haven't been reading the Bible, I've just been meditating, using crystals and sage and things that I am drawn to. So oh my gosh, now I'm gonna go to hell. So I have to ask for forgiveness and I have to ask God to bring me back to church. And I started going back to church. Actually, I didn't start going back to church. I went back once with my husband and I tried to convince myself that I was enjoying myself and having a good time. Now granted, it is always nice to do something with your spouse and spend the day with them and do something new with them. So that part was enjoyable, but church itself, when I sat down and actually thought about it, it still felt like a facade. And I think that is a wonderful word to use, is facade, because me, that's exactly what it is. Again, I think that God exists. Whatever label you want to use. The universe, the higher power, I don't care. It's all the same thing with different names, but church itself and religion, it just feels so man-made. I mean, you have people telling you other people outside of you telling you what you have to do and what the right thing is, and there's a lot of judgment. I think a lot of people that are on a spiritual journey, have been on a spiritual journey, or are embarking on a spiritual journey can relate to the struggles that I'm feeling between knowing that church is empty and you want to leave and you want to really go find God and have a spiritual awakening, really connect on a deep level, and then also being afraid of leaving church because because your whole life you've been taught if you disobey, if you don't follow this set of rules, you are going to go to this place forever that is terrible, a terrible place that you don't want to go to. So yes, while you're bettering yourself and bettering your life, you have this fear in the back of your mind. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there has to be other people out there who have gone through the same thing. And I actually got to the point where I deleted almost all of my spiritual content off of my Instagram. So if you go back and look now, it's almost all gone. And I tried replacing it with religious content. I don't know what I thought that was gonna do. I think it was just a fear-based decision where I was trying to correct my wrong. And still to this day, I've gotten over it a lot. I've worked on it a lot. I've turned back to following my intuition, meditating, and going down a spiritual journey. And back to following my intuition and meditating and going down a spiritual journey. Overall, trying to be a more enlightened person. But sometimes when I hear people talk about religion and Christianity, I still get scared. I still am afraid that if I die, I'm gonna go be punished because I didn't go praise God or connect to God in a way that other people wanted me to, or the way other people think that I should. Even though what I'm doing is peaceful and loving and full of pure intentions, for some reason there's still that fear instilled into us by society and by church. If you relate, comment down below, because I think this is such an important thing to talk about, especially in the spiritual community, because I really do feel like this is a silent struggle that so many people are going through, or have went through, or are going to go through at some point or another. I will probably make a video going more in depth into this and talking more about what my spiritual journey has been like in depth and the things that I've learned. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up down below. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that and hit the bell notification so that you get updated every time I upload.